Hi guys, Itai here. I'm an airline pilot, and before my real flying, I've always been flying home flight simulators. Recently, I made a big move from living in the US, the USA, United States, whatever you want to call it, to Europe. And I changed jobs from a USA regional operator as an Embraer E175 Captain to a European mainline operator, flying a Boeing 737 in a premium product as a first officer, as an FO. Per user request, I wanted to share a little bit of the differences in life and operation in hope you'd find it interesting. And that's a very good place to encourage you guys to interact with me in the comments, as there are some very good ideas that come out of there as well. So if there's a good discussion that develops or a good request, I might actually do a video on it. As for the channel, it's active again, and per my real-life schedule, I will be back to streaming my simulator flights of some nice long-haul flights ideas. So stay tuned, and if it's interesting to you, welcome to follow and like. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. And if you're listening to these words, I'm absolutely happy that you chose to join for this one. And now from my personal experience of the comparison between the Embraer E175 or E170 to the Boeing 737 NG. So the first things first is an airplane. So let's talk flying characteristics. First of all, the Boeing 737 NG is about twice the size, not the size, but about twice the weight and the mass of the Embraer, and you can really feel it while flying. It's a lot more massive. You can feel it, especially while taxiing, when you need to brake or you need to manage the energy, especially on the ground and close to the ground. But even in the air, you can really feel like there's a lot of mass behind you, and that it takes a little bit of more to stop all that mass. So that being said, the Embraer E175 is a very agile airplane. It's really quick. It's like a sports car airliner, basically. So you can really easily put it exactly where you want. We used to fly into the big airports, JFK and Chicago, and Boston and Miami, and all sorts of really huge airports. And over there, all the big jets are doing their thing, and we're usually within their sequence. That's one good thing. But even if we didn't want to, the ATC could squeeze us in really quickly, and they say, "Hey, can you quickly get into a final?" We call it a slam dunk, when they really close to the final approach fix, turn you to base and to final. Relatively close to the airport, and you have a lot of energy to lose really quickly. So the Embraer is really quick and agile. If you drop the gear, it slows down really quickly. You can get the flaps down, and you can, within a couple of miles, be very easily configured for landing, and to lose all that excess energy. So it's very light and agile. You can land it, the Embraer E175, you can land it in really small runways in airports, which leads to more interesting places professionally, in terms of not so long runway, not great facilities, some operations to manage, and it also could make for an interesting layover, or it could make for a crappy layover, in a very small deserted town. So it could go either way. But in terms of professionally speaking, it could be really nice. That being said, we sometimes did longer routes with the Embraer, even as much as a 4-hour. Not really regional flying, but sometimes we do feeder flights from really small airports to the main big airports. So a lot of diversity there. In terms of maneuvering the airplane, so the 737 is like a raw airplane. In my opinion, it's good. I really like it. You can really feel how the airplane needs to be treated. Every single little thing, you feel it. If you push up the thrust lever, and you increase the thrust, then you have a lot of pitching up moment, and you really feel that that moment, and you need to compensate for it using the trim, and you need to really be on your game in terms of just making the airplane do exactly what you want and anticipate it. There comes in the mass as well. You want to really anticipate what the airplane wants to do. So you need to kind of think a little bit ahead. The Embraer 175, as I said, first of all, it's more agile, and the second thing is it has fly-by-wire system. Now it's not like the Airbus. The Embraer 175, it won't fly the airplane for you and maintain a pitch like the Airbuses does. The nose would still do its own thing, but when you increase or decrease thrust, the computer would automatically trim the airplane. So most of the effect is mellowed out, and you barely feel it. You kind of do feel it, but not as much. So it's very mellowed out. It's a little bit it's very tamed in that sense. It's not going away from you in any sense. So it's you can kind of have at it in terms of thrust changes. The downside to that fly-by-wire system is, as I said, it's not really keeping the nose where you want it. It's just mellowing down some of the characteristics. But at the same time, it's kind of like flying with a, like a gnome helper. And sometimes that gnome is, sometimes you feel like, yeah, I could trim for myself, just leave my airplane alone and I'll do it myself. Sometimes you feel like you're trying to fly the airplane manually, and someone is messing with it a little bit. It's very, very subtle, but it's there. So back to the 737 now, it feels like everything I do is me. So if I'm well prepared to handle the airplane, and I'm familiar with what would happen, then it's really nice to feel that what I'm doing is happening instantly, and what I'm not doing is not happening. So it kind of helps for how you manage the energy. So that's flying characteristics. Quite a difference, but in the end, it's an airplane. An airplane is an airplane. Systems. So obviously the Embraer is a very automatic airplane. So what do I mean by that? The systems, first of all, everything is nicely laid out in the displays. In the 737, you kind of have to deduce it from switch positions and caution lights and annunciator lights. And the Embraer kind of lays it out for you very nicely, both here in the multifunction display, and as well as in the ICAS. So the ICAS really tells you a lot of information, right? And it lays it out really nicely for you. It can be sometimes misleading, and it could be sometimes annoying. For example, it just gives you a message, and it's kind of like, maybe that's not really the case, or that's kind of like a, not really a system bug, but it's like it says it because a very minor criteria had happened, but then at this point you're kind of obligated to go with it in terms of procedures. The Embraer, the 737, I feel like it's a very manual, very raw enunciation, and then you as a pilot deduce what you need to deduce and then act appropriately. Same for here, the overhead. As you can see in the Embraer overhead, everything is auto, which means in the everyday operation, when everything is fine, you barely do switches and flicking and whatnot. You just let it do its thing in the background, and it's completely transparent to you. While in the 737, you do a lot of switch flicking. So while that makes a lot of things easier, as a real pilot, you really need to know what your systems are actually doing. So you need to know what that auto position means. What would it do in every stage of the flight? The DC pump, what would it do? The electric pump on system 1, if it's auto, what does it mean? The PTU. So you need to know what's happening to the airplane. And what I saw a lot of newer first officers in the Embraer struggle with is they have the system knowledge, they learn the books by heart for the test, and then they go on the line, and their brain doesn't automatically connect the dots immediately. It takes a little while to really connect the dots between what they know from the book learning to the everyday operation. And then it's like the airplane is doing its own thing, and you still need to know what it's doing, or more importantly, when it's not doing it, what should have happened, and if it's not happening, then okay, yeah, we need to recognize that and get to work. And not always would it be enunciated in the ICAS, only sometimes. So it's kind of a double layer. You need to know the systems, and you need to know when you want them switched on or off. And then you have the automatic layer, and you know that the automatic layer is supposed to switch them on or off, but when it doesn't, you need to be able to recognize this. In that sense, I really like the 737. The 737 is a very raw airplane, so you're the one doing all the switching. When you want something, you just switch it, and when you don't want it, you switch it off. And when it's not doing it, it's just enunciating, hey, you put the switch to on, it's not doing it, you can respond if you want. So it's very raw in that sense. So the automation is very misleading. It's giving you a lot of less switching to do in real life. So there's less of a chance to just, as you do your flows are really quick. You just do them with a few seconds. But it gives it's also an opening to switch something wrong, or to do something wrong, or to mess something up. That being said, if you are not wrong, it gives you total controls of the system rather than observing the computer doing it, hoping that if it doesn't, you'll catch it in time. So I like the rawness of the 737 systems. I like how you control everything, because in the Embraer, I felt like I was always in control of everything. I just had to wait for the proxy computer to do that, right? For the computer to do that, and hope that it doesn't mess it up. And then when it does mess it up, it takes a few seconds to realize, and then you are kind of responding accordingly. So again, everything is over here automated. Coming back to the ICAS, and that's very modern. The 737 really is the old concept. It's not. There is not going to be another airplane that's certified with the master caution and just enunciator lights. Everything in newer airplanes in the ICAS. It's mostly nice, but there are some advantages to the latter. Now, for the final piece, I want to talk about the operation again. So, the operation of there's very big differences in the regional model of U.S. carriers. It's just historically it's called a regional. It's not really regional. It's mostly the idea is that we used to work with the main line, so American, Delta, and United Airlines, the main lines. They used to to purchase flight hours and flights from us. We used to have airplanes with the colors of American, Delta, United, Alaska, even, and and we used to operate flights for them. The passenger doesn't know. The passenger, like in this example, the passenger boards an airplane that says American Airlines or American Eagle in that sense, and maybe they just came from, let's say, maybe they're just arriving from London on a big jet to JFK, and from JFK they fly an American Eagle airplane, the feeder airplane, into their home in, I don't know, somewhere in Ohio. So we operate it for them. The passengers don't know. But it doesn't mean that we only do short legs. That being said, We can do a one leg, but when I say leg, I mean flight. So it could be or sector, right? So sector, leg, flight, it's all the same. So we could have a one leg day or one deadhead. So fly as a passenger somewhere to pick up an airplane and fly it one leg. But we can also, but our typical day would be 3 legs. So that's a lot. Now sometimes we would have, and it's not that uncommon. We have it pretty commonly. We would have 4 leg days. Um, and even occasionally, once a couple of months, I would have a 5 leg day. So every leg is really quick. You have to be really you're just going from flight to flight. You take off, you cruise a little, you land, and you have 30 minutes to prepare the next sector, the next flight, and it could be stressful. You don't have a lot of time to take a break or to eat. Um, and that's basically all you do. Um, then in the 7.3 in Europe, we have it's a premium product. It doesn't do all these hops. We do kind of mainline flying. Some of them could be long, and it's a lot more relaxed. You have time to eat while in cruise. We have business class food, so if there's leftover, we can, and there's always some leftovers. We get to eat like human beings and relax, and it's a much more relaxing flights. And then you end up in a nice European capital. So not instead of a very small U.S. town, you can end up in a European capital and find that you have a good 24 hours or even 30 hours to enjoy it. So that's a big difference in the operation. Also for the family, it's I can bring family to join me on these flights, and it makes the home life balance a lot easier because I'm not always tired at home, but it also benefits my house that I have this job. So it's really nice to share with them, family and friends, to share with them my job and my joys at going to work. Um, all these quick turns and so back to the US, all these quick turns and the multiple legs means that if there's some weather and some delays on the first leg, you have 3 or 4 more legs to worry about. So then every delay, everything it's gonna take effect until the end of the day, and it's gonna continue to do it even tomorrow. If the schedule gets messed up today, it's gonna also mess up tomorrow morning. So the complexity sometimes can really get your head to hurt from all the quick changes. The people are different between the U.S. and Europe, but that's just so U.S. Americans are Americans everywhere. I mean, there's differences between places, between the characteristics of the people, but it feels like the same country. It is the same country. European, you feel like, and I'm not saying it as it's just a cultural thing. The U.S. is a big country that it is multicultural, but it feels like it's very unified. You're going between different cities. You'd have Target and Walmart, and you'd have the same chains mostly. Europe, it feels like every city and every layover has its own very unique characteristics, and it's more obvious than it is in the U.S. So that's something that I feel. And then so that's for the operation. And lastly, I want to talk about the difference between being a captain, which I used to be in the U.S., to now being back as a first officer. So obviously, when you're captain, the full responsibility is 100% on you. So it's all on you to make sense of what the operation is, to understand all the rules and regulations, the company procedures, and make sure they're complied with, and even if they are complied with, you still need to make sure that it makes sense and it's safe. So it's a lot of responsibility, but the nice thing is once you are familiar with it, then it's really nice that whatever makes sense to you personally, that is what's happening. And if it doesn't make sense to you, it's not happening. Period. You don't have to convince anyone. You may have to write a report about it, but it's fully 100% your judgment. Um, Being a first officer, you are a second in command. You are um, a team with the captain, so you're working together. If you have a good captain, they will consult with you on everything, and they will take your opinion into consideration really nicely. Um, but not all captains are the same to work with. Some have different personalities. Some don't mix well with yours. So you need to make it happen, and it's their decision, and it's your job to help them make the correct decision in a collaborative CRM and all that stuff. Um, but sometimes you do some convincing. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you find yourself saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not like I get what you mean, and I'm okay with it. It's not. It wouldn't be my decision, but I'm fully okay with your decision." Or sometimes you'd have to say, "You know what? I'm not really cool with it. Let's find a different way that both of us would be happy." So that's being a first officer. But a lot of people take it as junior versus senior, or in charge versus lack of responsibility. The first officer has a lot of responsibility. First of all, it's the biggest layer of safety that the captain has. Like I said, it's another partner. We know the same things. We have access to the same manuals and the same procedures. We should know the same airplane. So obviously, usually the captain is more senior and more experienced and has some more knowledge if you dig into that. But the first officer is exposed to the same information, so you can develop based on different personalities and different experience. You can develop some different opinions on how to do the same thing, and your input is very important. So the first officer has a very interesting and delicate responsibility here. Also, it's a very common saying to say that the first officer is a captain in training. So the airline doesn't hire people to stay first officers. They hire potential captains. So you are, but you share the responsibility with the captain, and you're training towards being a captain eventually. Like I said, same knowledge, same procedure, same airplane. You just need to make sure to be compliant and to find a good solution that satisfies every procedures and every person. And another thing is sometimes your captain is busy with something, or they're stuck in traffic and they're late for the airplane, or they are sick and someone else is stepping in to become captain, but there's a couple of hours until they show up, and you as the first officer are in charge. You are in command until the captain shows up. So you need to be able to do everything, to be able to take care of the airplane, talk to the mechanics, the ground crews, the dispatch, the flight attendants, the passengers, and step in. Maybe the captain got replaced, so until there is a replacement, there's no communication. You just have to step up and do it, or while communicating. Let's say we're delayed because of a mechanical, and we also need to de-ice, and someone needs to talk to the passengers and the flight attendants and stay and keep everyone in the loop. So there's a lot of communication on what do you as the first officer do versus to take the load off of the captain, instead of the first officer just sitting there in the cockpit and the captain doing everything and talking to everyone. So a good first officer is really just a partner to the captain, and the captain just makes sure everything did happen eventually. So that's a very long spiel on first officer versus captain, but I really feel it these days because I used to be captain. Now I'm back to the right seat, the first officer. There's a very delicate art to it, and sometimes it's not that delicate, but there is some content to it. So that's my spiel. I moved from the U.S. to Europe, moved to a regional product to a premium product and mainline product, moved from a small agile automated airplane to a larger, a little bit more massive, way less automated airplane, and systems are different, operation is totally different, and my seat is totally different. But essentially, I'm working with really nice, really good people, and it makes for a and I'm very happy about that move. And yeah, I hope to continue to create some content here that you guys are going to like. I'm not by any means going to make an online flight school, so don't expect a tutorial for every single little thing in the simulator. But nevertheless, I hope to share with you not necessarily my experiences, but to share my love for the operation and aviation, as I feel it every day going to work as well as playing the sim at home. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. Happy to hear your comments. Until the next time, happy flying.